that depend on Ubers and Lyfts, not just to get downtown, but to get to other neighborhoods, right, because of the lack of bus service. So a portion of that new revenue is dedicated to what's called bus priority zones. The city has estimated that they could bring in as much as $40 million in new revenue through those TNC fees. Can you sort of talk about this?
Well, I was on the mayor's transition team, and that was the transportation transition team, and that's one of the things we recommended is to provide that additional fee for the TNCs going into particularly polluting the congesting the loop. So obviously I'm all in favor of doing that. And I think the other thing is because it has had an impact on transit is that we need to try and make the transit system whole as much as we can. $40 million as the estimate. I just hope we get to $40 million because the CTA needs every penny of that.
It's also not clear how much of that money will be earmarked for the bus priority zones.
Right, yes, because there's also the hole in the budget, the city budget, that has to be closed as well. But yes, I was all in favor of the tax, advocated for it when the TNC started putting out wrong numbers about the impact of people on the south and west side. At CNT, we do a lot of data crunching, and so our data analysts, did, the city released, or the TNCs released to the city their data, and the data made it public, and we use that data to actually quantify the impact on riders on the south and west side versus the rest of the city, and use that as a way of saying that this is how we get a little bit more equitable in our transportation network, as well as providing the transportation option that people need.
Do you feel like the proposal went far enough?
Well, the thing is that it was, in public policy, being here at the Harris School, this, is that, sometimes policies have to be incremental, that you need to see what are the unintended consequences of a new policy going into place. And so I think for initial run, something new, the whole TNC system nationally, everybody is testing out new things. We haven't gone as far as New York in terms of their banning of TNCs, but New York and their bureau system, their geography is a little bit different than our flatlands here in Chicago. But I think for initial run through, I think it was probably good enough. And hopefully people will keep taking those single rides into the loop and keep filling the city coffers with those extra fees so that we can help our transit system.
Right. And, something else that Mayor Lightfoot has kicked around is this idea of doing a congestion pricing plan, which could potentially bring in much more significant revenue than the TNC fee structure. So they did a study at the beginning of the year, I think, that found that half of all ride-hailing trips citywide begin or end in the downtown area, and nearly a third of those trips also start and end in the downtown area. So, what is the likelihood that Chicago will follow New York City's footsteps and pass a comprehensive congesting pricing plan? It's a mouthful.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's a big mouthful of thought too. In New York, because they have the boroughs, and they have the Hudson River and the East River, and so they have some advantages in terms of implementing a congestion fee. London, on the other hand, has been very successful in their congestion pricing. But they don't have the Kennedy, the Eisenhower, and the Dan Ryan flowing into central London. So again, our infrastructure and our geography, I think, make it very challenging to implement a congestion pricing fee. I know as part of CMAP, back when it was CATS even. There was research looking at how increase, how to do something with congestion pricing. And it came about not so much because of congestion pricing, but tolling of those expressways. Minnesota had done it, back in early 1990s on I-35. And so the question was whether or not, it was possible to toll the expressways here in Chicago. And at the time, earlier at that time, we didn't have the technology like we have now with the transponders and so forth. So, that would make it a little bit easier. But, again, the infrastructure that you have to install in order to even use the transformers, where is that money coming from? So, again, it's chicken and eggs, man. Yeah. It would be great.
A lot of chicken and eggs, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what transportation is all about, and public policy is all about, is, getting it all balanced out. But, so we had the ability to have transponders on our expressways. And, if you're coming, past, Ashland, Halsted, probably Ashland better than Halsted, with a circle around the loop, and you could have transponders on all of those highways, and you could afford to put up the transponders. Awesome, we could do it, but it's going to be a bit of a challenge. It's a nice idea, but the practicality of it, the infrastructure of making it happen.
So this might be a good opportunity to take a break, and we'll have a little bit more after the break.
Awesome.
As China's role grows greater on the global stage, you want to stay up to date on the issues most pressing to China both domestically and internationally. Check out the Just China podcast for in-depth analysis on recent headlines and investigative reports on Chinese matters that affect our globalized world. We are Just China. Find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy your podcast listening.
So I'd like to talk about e-scooters.
Excellent.
At the beginning of this year, the city of Chicago released a report which summarized the pilot program here in Chicago. And I know CNT helped put together that report. Can you talk about some of the key findings of that report? What were the main takeaways?
I would say, Stephen, for me, the main takeaway is that it was a demonstration project. It was a very successful demonstration project. And I think the folks of the city were excited about it. And I think we need to, and the report recommended that we do another round. And expand it. As you know, this was a limited geography for this first round of scooters. But one of the things that happened is that, particularly we were talking earlier about residents on the south and west sides having transportation options. And one of the things the e-scooters did do is to provide them with an affordable way of having transportation neighborhood to neighborhood, not coming into the central district or the central area of the city, but, to get from Woodlawn to Inglewood, kind of geography is what the scooters can provide.
Sort of that first mile, last mile
exactly.
solution.
Exactly. So I think the city I think is going to go with another demonstration project this summer and expand the area of the city where we have e-scooters. So we can have a fuller analysis, more data to look at. Is this something that should be made permanent in the city of Chicago?
So one of the things that report also found was that many trips ended at or near public transit stations, including 50% of trips which ended near CTA train or bus stops. I'm just wondering, what your thoughts are on, those rides, those e-scooter rides potentially cannibalizing, CTA riders or bus riders. Is that a cause for concern?
Well, I don't know, Stephen. Would you like to get on a scooter and go from here to downtown?
Right.
No, here to the Garfield station, the CTA makes sense, but going all the way downtown, I don't think so. Maybe you're brave enough to do it, but I don't think a lot of people be willing to do it. And I tell you, I'm not even looking to do it from here to the Garfield station. So that's definitely a young person's mode of transportation, for sure.
Right. So it almost seems like the e-scooters are more supplementary than they are, replacing those bus or train riders. And interestingly enough, part of that pilot, you saw a lot of people riding the scooters from the western portions of the pilot area to the eastern portion, along Milwaukee Avenue there, where there's lots of bars and restaurants. So I'm just wondering, do you feel like this is truly promoting transit equity, or do you feel like it's more something for people to get to the next bar, or maybe it's replacing a TNC ride?
Yeah, well, I think it's, that's a function of where the pilot area was. Now, during the time of the pilot, I had to go over to the West Loop a number of times. And, in that area, people were using it as last mile for the most part. There are businesses there. Now there are a lot of bars. There are some bars there. But, there were still, that's the one thing about the scooters. I had to step over the scooters to get where I was going because people, would just leave them anywhere. And that's a condition that we definitely going to have to deal with because we have people who are in wheelchairs and mothers with strollers and so forth that, scooters scattering all over the sidewalk is a hazard. Or in some instances, an impediment if you're in a wheelchair. So the Milwaukee area I think it was just a function of you got a lot of bars there, but other
Right.
parts of the demonstration area it was not a social means.
Sure. So CNT has partnered with Active Transportation Alliance on this initiative called Transit Future, which is a vision of what an expanded transportation system in Cook County might look like. Can you maybe talk some more about this?
Well, we started off, and I said, you asked me the question, I said what it takes the political will to provide the resources. And so right now, there is an opportunity, again, the political will. Part of expanding the transit to where people need to go is, again, providing that service to the south suburbs, rapid transit service that people don't have to go bus to bus to bus to bus to get where they need to go. The county has agreed, President Preckwinkle has agreed to supplement the difference in fares that the CTA would lose if we were to invest in making the Metro Electric the same price as the CTA. And so what that would do is to provide rapid service from people in the south suburbs into the loop at an affordable price, right? The CTA price rather than the $5 or the $7 it would take if they were paying the Metro fare. Well, Metro's okay with it. The county's okay with it. The community is okay with it. The CTA is not okay with it. And the mayor's not okay with it, right? And so, again, it's like convincing the CTA that, it's a demonstration project, right? Just like the scooters. We see if it works. We see if the county can provide that lost revenue to the CTA from its loss of riders, to see whether or not we do increase the ridership on Metro Electric. Because we have this wonderful asset that's flowing to the community, but people can't afford to ride it, So the transit future was another kind of vision like that, is that when we looked at the four major metropolitan employment area and how do we get transportation there, well, the CTA and the Metro over the years have come up with various plans to provide train service to those areas. And now that we have bus rapid transit where we can't put in trains, we could put in bus rapid transit to provide, similar, if not the same as rail transit to those areas. But it's about dedicating the revenue to make it happen. So the plans are there, and a lot of places preliminary EISs have been done. That's jargon. No, it's not jargon. It's really federal law for doing these kind of things. You have to have an environmental impact statement. So a lot of the preliminary work has been done on these routes, and what's stopping those routes from happening are the resources. And so what we were trying to do, President Preckwinkle came into office giving back that